Hey everyone, today we are building a PC step by step and I'll be breaking down each component as we go. Whether you're a beginner or just need a refresher, this guide will help you understand what each part does and why it's important. So let's go ahead and let's get started. Firstly, we're going to talk about the motherboard, the foundation of our build. It connects every component and allows them to communicate. The key parts of the motherboard include, of course, the CPU socket, the CPU, RAM slots, and the RAM sticks, PCI slots, and storage connectors. Make sure, obviously, before you install the CPU, you want to make sure that your motherboard is compatible with it. So with installing the CPU, right, the CPU is a central processing unit, also known as the brain of the PC, handles all the processing tasks for your system. And here I am showing you guys that there is usually an indicator or a corner mark where you want to line it up with the CPU socket, right? So now we're going to go ahead and apply the thermal paste to the CPU before we add the CPU cooler. And usually a pea-size glob is usually good here. This is a CPU cooler, air type CPU cooler. There is 3 different versions: the air, a stock air cooler, and of course the AIO and a 4th and a water cooled system loop. Usually in this case right here, I usually lock it down using a star method like you would changing a tire, going from one corner to another. And of course, after plugging that in, you guys want to make sure that the CPU fan is plugged in. Usually you'll have a CPU fan controller or a CPU AIO, whichever, it'll be indicated there. And then from here, we're going to move on to the RAM or system memory on the motherboard here. And this right here will help keep your short-term memory on the computer. Now, moving into the case, we have the rear shield IO. A lot of people that I have seen buying used or even seeing used PCs myself, there's no rear IO shield back there that lines up the motherboard and components. Here in the case, I'm showing you guys the motherboard standoffs, right, to screw down the motherboards. And here are your motherboard screws. Typically, cases will be included with those screws. And once you have that all plugged in, what I usually do from there is start plugging in the things around it, from the audio to the front USB and USB ports to the motherboard. And then moving on to that, you guys see here the USB 3.0. This one is an older motherboard, so most of the newer ones will have a smaller version of this, which is usually a small aluminum plug, right, for the Type-C front. And then from there, I usually move on to the power switch and reset switch. And right here, it's indicated on the motherboard where those things should go. So I usually start locating the power switch and the reset switch first before adding in everything else. This here is the adapter that some motherboards could come with, and or cases, that makes this process a lot more simple. And that's how that would look once everything is all plugged in. So now your PC is coming along in its case. I usually go next to installing the power supply. And from there, the power supply, right, helps power the system. There are different wattages, so you want to make sure you look at each one of your components to make sure you are meeting those needs. And that goes especially for newer graphics cards these days. Now here I'm indicating that the fan, right, needs to be pointing down where the mesh is available there on the case itself. And then from here, what I usually do is, again, separate the cords, right? Here I'm showing you guys the CPU cord, the SATA power connectors, as well as the Molex connectors on the power supply. Now, typically the CPU cords get routed up there on the top right corners, but with this being an older case design and the motherboard being in place, I'm going to show you guys a quick routing interface here really quick. So, of course, while installing the PCU or power supply into the case, making sure that your cable management is tight or clean. In this case, I'll show you guys some areas here where you guys can utilize and kind of copy and mimic where on your case you want to thread your cables and connections to. So from there, we plug in that main board power, and here I am connecting Molex connectors to the case fans that are available on this, right? And that's what they will look like there. Now, usually from here, I'll tuck away those things or those accessories or extra bits away, and I will move on to the storage. Here, this is a solid state drive, your standard SSD, right? There are other drives available, like this one here is the hard drive or HDD, right? Spinning disk. And I'm going to go ahead and power these devices on using these SATA connectors from the power supply. These are the SATA transfer cables, right? Two different variations here. You have the L-shaped one and the straight facing forward one there. Those things are going to be routed to the storage devices and then plugged in to your port 1 or 2 on your motherboard. Order doesn't really matter, right? But specifically, you can always go into your BIOS and change these things up for boot priorities. And that's what it would look like right there once everything's all plugged in. So now that everything's connected and powered up, you can go ahead and close things up. Of course, to make that look cleaner, you could use zip ties and cable ties to your liking. But hopefully this right here is helping you guys so far. So now that the case is all tidied up, the only thing left is installing our graphics card. The graphics card, of course, is essential for gaming, editing, and 3D rendering, and also just displaying images on your computer. So we're going to install into that PCIe slot there, use the corresponding power for the graphics card, and boom, there you go. You have it now. We're going to go ahead and test this thing on. Light is on. Make sure you flip that switch on the back because that is a common thing that people forget. And here we go. That's it. Our PC is built and ready to go. I hope you guys found this helpful in a process and a step-by-step to kind of show you what direction you need to go in when putting together your first PC or learning what things to do first. Again, subscribe and like for more content and hardware testing and guides for you guys, as well as playthroughs and gameplays on the channel. Let me know what you guys think. Any questions, leave it down below in the comments, and thanks for watching. I hope you guys have a wonderful time building your first PCs, and you guys know what it is. I'll see you guys on the next video. Deuces!